Welcome to the Financial Coaches Podcast, where we talk about how to build your practice from startup to scale up while being the kind of coach your clients crave. Finally, a podcast for financial coaches. Here are your hosts, Maria Casillas and Cody Sizemore.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Financial Coaches Podcast. My name is Cody Sizemore, and I'm joined here today with my lovely co-host, Maria Casillas. And we got some stuff to talk about, which Maria brought this up to me, and I'm really glad that she did because it's something that I see a big snag for a lot of people that I talk to. And actually, it's a big premise of what I kind of set the stage for in a lot of my consultations as well. So it's an exciting topic, an important topic. But before we get into any of that, just want to say a few things. Number one, thank you for listening today. If this is your first time checking this out, we appreciate you, at least being curious enough to listen to us, and hopefully you get some value from that. And if you're someone who's been listening to us for a long time and you listen to us every single week as we release new episodes, you are someone that we call our every weekers, which we really do appreciate you. You guys are the ones who really keep this show alive. And we just appreciate you for everything that you've done with continuing to support our show, whether it be just listening, whether it be leaving a review, whether it be sharing the show. All of that is very much appreciated. So we just want to say thank you for that. And also, a really good way to connect with us, to either ask questions or connect with like-minded coaches who are all trying to make a greater impact. A great way to do that is to hop into our Facebook group. It's free to join, and you can simply just type into your search bar on Facebook and just type in the Financial Coaches Community by New Money Habits. Answer a few simple questions, hop in, introduce yourself, and go from there. So with that being said, I want to welcome in Maria. So Maria, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Excited to be here.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be a good day.
Amen.
Yeah.
I own it.
Yes. All right. So, I'll let you kind of set the stage with this one because you're the one who kind of brought this topic up, and we talked about it very, very briefly before we hopped on and started recording. Not enough to, script anything, but just enough to get a general idea.
Yeah.
So take it away, sister.
Okay. So, and we talked about it briefly because it's actually a pretty brief topic. But I think that I wanted to just kind of run it by you a little bit because I know that this is something that a lot of our potential and current clients struggle with. But this particular, it was not a client yet. It was more of the consultation time when she said this. And she has hired me, but we have not yet begun. So that's just setting the stage for where we are with that. But she said this phrase that kind of, in my mind, sums up what so many people are kind of thinking. And so I just wanted to bring that to you today. And when we were talking about really getting to what the pain point is, and and really just digging into what has she already tried? Why is she coming to me? Because she's very intelligent. She has some money from her family. Like, she doesn't own it, but she comes from money. So her family has a myriad of financial advisors and people that they can talk to. And she also, her husband is very much involved, and he also is very intelligent. And they have been debt free before. And it's just there's all this history. And when we were trying to figure out what it was, she said, there's just, I need somebody to help me find the missing piece. And I was like, oh, okay. I think that sums up what so many people are asking for. But I said, well, tell me a little bit more. She said, well, I've had so many people tell me, here's what I was figuring out. If you have all this free advice, because that's what she has, why would you want to pay for something like this? Really is what we were getting at.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, well, the advisors, they say, well, here's what you can do, and go and do this. And then there's a bank. I don't know what bank they're at, but at this bank, they allow you to do all of these different things, and they're free services, and you can look into this and you can do that. And she goes, but I know what to do. And she said, I just need somebody to help me figure out why I'm not doing the things that I want to do. And also, how do I get back to life being organized, but fulfilling at the same time. And I think that's really what she was after. And so I'm excited to work with her in finding some of that with her, and that we start next week, actually.
Hmm. That's awesome. That's awesome. And it just goes to show that, like, sometimes people can think that they're doing the right things by, like, having the financial advisor, or having this, a relationship with the bank, or having, a good budget sheet or whatever. And
Right.
sometimes they're still scratching their heads like, well, there should be more here, or
Uh,
why isn't this working the way I really want it to, kind of
yeah.
thing.
Yep.
Um, so kudos to you for being able to, step in there and speak to her heart, and, motivate her to step in with working with you. One, but then also two is like actually taking a stand for herself, and
Yeah.
helping her recognize those shortcomings. I think that's important.
Yeah, interestingly enough, she is a psychologist by trade.
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
thought that was really
Yeah.
interesting. And sometimes those of us who study that also struggle the most with our own stuff, and we need to be able to talk to somebody about that. I think one of the interesting things that we can unpack a little bit is with the financial advisors, it was all number based, of
Yes.
course,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But it was also a very specific number based. It was just like, okay, you want to have this amount by the time you retire at this age. So this is what you need to do. And that was just like, here's the plan.
Yep.
And that was just very unfulfilling for her, first of all. But it also didn't seem like enough for her, which is interesting because even just in the consultation, I think I mentioned the term, so you want to have your cake and eat it too? She's like, yes, yes, I do. And we had to realize that that might not be the case. Like she wants to be able to spend all of her money now and have all of her money later. So there's that she's stuck there. And she recognizes that that's one of the areas she's stuck, and that that's where we're going to try to help her get unstuck. But she doesn't want to just stop putting money aside. She doesn't want to just stop spending just haphazardly based on a number, because then it won't actually be in alignment with what she values. And I think that's really what she's looking for.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. So I mean, without sharing too much information, and obviously you haven't officially started working with her, you've only had the
Right. So I don't
consultation.
know a lot of it.
But what do you think that she's actually looking for, and what she actually values that maybe the financial advisor side of things isn't fulfilling for her?
Yeah, good question. So she's a homeschool mom, and I think that she really values being able to stay at home with her kids and not have to get an income, a paycheck right now.
Hmm.
But she also is very capable of receiving a paycheck. And so it's being able to settle that in her heart a little bit and recognize that this is not forever, that this is just a stage in life, that she can then pick up her income. So one of the things that I think she's going to want to do is talk to her financial advisor of like, okay, assume that I have zero income until this particular point, but don't assume I have zero income for the rest of my life, because that will help to change that trajectory in their numbers for them. So I think that's one of the things that she values. But I also think that she wants to be able to do things with her kids now.
Hmm.
So she values the experiences, and she wants to be able to say yes to the things that are important to them as a family. And that's great. I think that that's an important thing for her to do. Having said that, she might have to say no to some other things. And so I think that's really what I'll have to work with her and to find out, what are you saying no to so that you can say yes to these other things that are more important. I think she would like to say yes to everything. Wouldn't we all?
Yeah.
But we have to be able to make those decisions, and I just wanna make sure that she's making the decisions in a way that will serve her and her family long term. And I keep saying she, but she's actually bringing her husband into the process, so he will be working with us as well, but he was not present for the
Gotcha.
consultation.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that is a point that I just want to touch on briefly, and then I have my own kind of like side of things that I think, yeah, I want to kind of discuss on this topic as well. Um, But I think that oftentimes, especially financial coaches and especially newer financial coaches, we focus very much so on the numbers and the goals and just trying to help people get through those and accomplish those like as fast as possible. And I
Mhm.
think a part of that is that like obviously we want to see our clients have success, right? But I also think another part is like kind of an ego thing to where it's like, well, if I can help them get these goals accomplished as fast as possible, then that makes me feel good about me, and I also have that proof of concept,
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
show other people of what I can do and help people accomplish, right?
Yep.
And we get kind of caught up in that sometimes we forget that money isn't just about and in us serving our clients isn't just about paying down debt, building up savings, getting, retirement into a good place as fast as possible. Obviously, it's great to do that, but it's not the only thing that matters. And I think that like it's important that when you have certain clients that tell you, hey, like spending time with my kids or taking these trips with my family is very important to me, that we shouldn't like, push back on that and
Mhm.
be like, "Well, you can't take that trip while you have this debt. Like, what are you talking about?"
Yep.
Or, "Hey, like, I understand you want to spend more time with your kids, but if you worked, could you imagine how much faster you could accomplish these goals?" Like,
Mhm.
we have to respect that money is not just a numbers thing, you know?
Right.
And I think that especially newer coaches, and I can say that confidently because that's how I was when I initially started. Um, we struggle with that sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I think there's 2 parts to that. There might be more, but the 2 that come up for me is 1, it's very concrete, so it's measurable. And
Mhm.
it makes it easy
Yeah.
for us to be able to measure that. But I also think that the converse of that thinking is what makes us kind of want to stay in that spot. And what I mean by that is it's one thing to see it go really fast, but when you look at this opposite side of that, when things aren't moving, let's say for a second that even if it's whether it's a newer coach or or established one, if they are really focusing more on all of the things that you just mentioned, then the number piece of it might slow down,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And and because of that, then we go, "Oh, no, I'm not getting them the results fast enough than as I had hoped." And so I think both of those are playing, and it seems like why would you even mention that? It seems like the same thing, but I don't know that it totally is. It's just it weighs on you a little bit more. So one of them's more of like the ego, like, "Oh, look at me, I got it going." But the other one starts to weigh you down and them and go, "I'm not getting this fast enough." And it can make you just give up. And that's the other piece I wanna just make sure that people understand is that if we as coaches can set the expectations for our clients that those results might not come as quickly because we're seeing this other change happening, I think that's gonna be super important for them and for us as well, because it'll probably have a lot less people backing out on you because now the expectation has been set and they're not wondering why, so and so paid off
Yeah.
$400,000, but I've only done $50,000. But you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
That
Um,
that goes hand in hand with even if you remember a couple episodes ago, we talked about the spousal friction, right?
mhm, mhm.
So that client in particular I shared with you, like we're not getting financial results right now.
Any
We
or just not fast ones?
Well, not fast ones for
Okay.
sure. But like, when we entered it, we thought like, hey, like we can get this in good shape. But then we found out that there was this, you know, big elephant in the room
Yeah.
to overcome. So the shift has been really focusing on that
Mhm,
versus actually making progress with her finances. And just from talking to her, I mean, she is very appreciative and she still sees the value and everything like that. Um, even when it's not measurable, quote
mm,
unquote,
mhm.
So I think that part of it is also just being okay with not everyone being like this, like, you know, to the moon immediately kind of process, you know?
Yep.
Um, and that requires some vulnerability with both you and your client.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Absolutely. The other thing I want to point out, because you had asked what one of the things that we plan to work on, and I was gonna say it, and as you started talking, like, yep, I definitely need to say it, is that her processes are one of the things that really just need some help. So she's got her own way of doing things so far, but
Hmm.
what she really wants some help with is figuring out what about those processes is not working.
Right.
And it's not like I'm gonna come in and be like, here's what I do, and here's how you should now do it. It's more along the lines of what are you doing that's working? What are you doing that's keeping you from making those goals? And how do we tweak those? So that's one of the things that we'll definitely be working on. But what's really kind of interesting is hearing how she processes things is actually how I figured out like one of her values because it's okay to say, what do you value? But it's even better to let them talk and you help pick it out of that.
Mhm.
So, for example, we were talking about like who in your household does the actual finances and just kind of those types of questions. And one of the ones that she said, well, she said that she does most of them. But what she was saying is that when they get their tax return, she immediately transfers that to a vacation fund so that they can go on that vacation every year. And so it was in hearing that that I realized, okay, so that is something that's a non negotiable for her. And I even clarified, and she said, that is a non negotiable for me. I said, okay. But we might be able to find a way that's not just grabbing from this fund or from tax fund, like we're relying on that. And that her husband, and she doesn't tell her husband that. It's funny because he knows that she does it, but it's all so it's not totally secretive, but it's kind of one of those. I'm gonna move it right now because if he sees it, he'll spend it
Right.
type of thing, and I wanna make sure that he's able to help make these decisions as well, so bringing him more into that mix, I think is gonna help strengthen not only their processes, but their relationship as well.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. So I love everything you just said. I do want to kind of shift gears slightly, if you're okay with that.
Of course.
Um, and just kind of give my perspective on this whole topic of, helping clients find what's missing kind of thing. So one thing that I say quite a bit, especially in like the whole consultation process, is that, I'll talk to people who have said similar things where they say like, hey, I have a financial advisor and, they just told me to do this and it hasn't really helped. I don't really talk to them very often. It's like once or twice a year kind of thing. Or they'll say to me like, I've tried to do this before and on paper it looks good, but it never seems to actually work out,
Mhm,
and stuff like that, right?
mhm,
So I ask two questions after I get through my initial like numbers questions with them. I have two questions that I kind of like use to essentially set up the stage for the rest of my consultation. And before I ask those questions, I tell people, I say, there's another side of finances that I feel oftentimes goes overlooked. And what I have found is that because it goes overlooked, that's often the things that can either really hold people back or, leave them feel frustrated and confused.
mhm,
Whereas if we get those things figured out, it's actually the stuff that can actually allow people to finally move forward and to start making that progress as well.
mhm,
So I'll ask two questions. And the two questions would be, when you think about money and everything that you have going on with it, what sort of thoughts, feelings, and emotions do you typically experience? That'll
mhm.
be one. And the other one is, if you had to be 100% honest with yourself, what do you feel is the biggest thing that's been holding you back from having your money be where you ultimately want it to be? And those two answers that they give me are very, very telling, right?
Mhm, mhm,
Um, because what that shows is how it's actually affecting them mentally, emotionally, maybe even spiritually, um, and what sort of like shortcomings that they feel that they still need to work on in order to overcome it, whether it be a spending habit, whether it be a communication problem, whatever it might be, kind of thing.
mhm,
Um, so my point here is that like sometimes helping people find what's missing, it has nothing to do with the numbers. And
Mhm.
in fact, it has to do more so with how they think about money, how they behave with money, where those thoughts and behaviors actually come from, what the root of
Mhm.
them are.
Mhm.
What's causing those things on a daily basis, and most importantly, how to either heal from certain things or to overcome certain things as well. And that's what I have found is to where it's like people could have the best financial advisor in the world who they have those investments up and running. They're really good at it. They've crunched those numbers. They have the graphs. They have the interest rates all figured out. Like everything's great. They could also have the best budget sheet in the world. But if for some reason there's a block mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to where their relationship with money isn't aligned with what they're trying to do, whether it be with a spending habit, a communication problem, whatever it might be, it just simply won't work. And that's where
Mhm.
people say, like, hey, I'm frustrated because on paper, this should be making sense. But then when I
Mhm.
get to the end of the month, I don't know where my money went, kind of
Mhm.
thing, you know?
Mhm.
And maybe that's even something that we can talk a little bit more about on like another episode, maybe next week, even.
Mhm.
But that is, one reason as to why I love that you brought this topic up is because this is one of the main reasons I think that people struggle with finances is that they're looking for what makes sense, being like,
Mhm.
oh, well, I just need this tool or I just need this plan, when really it's a far deeper thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you were talking that I heard I want my cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
Like that's where I think some of that comes from. So,
Yeah.
100% agree. I think and those are really great questions. Being as fond, I guess, of the cognitive behavioral model. I really, really appreciate the first question that you asked when you
Hmm.
think about money, what sorts of emotions and thoughts and feelings come up for you. Because that's actually going to help with setting that up. If anybody knows anything about that type of therapy, if you will, that's how those are the things you need. Those are the elements that are necessary in order to know. And so
Hmm.
I think that that's really, really important. And I love the second question because it allows you to let them really kind of fill in the gap already. Like it's they think that this is the problem, but you're actually they think they need you to help them, and they do, but they don't need you to tell them the answer. You
Yeah.
are just presenting a question in a way that has them thinking about what is the thing that's holding them back, and then you can help fill in that missing piece for them. So I
And
really like that.
oftentimes what I find, sorry to interrupt, but
No, you're
oftentimes
good.
what I find is that the relationships between the answers of question one and question two are often intertwined,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm.
So it's kind of fun.
Yep. Yeah, I'll bet that is fun. I what I was gonna ask you is how long do you give them to answer?
Those initial questions,
Mhm.
I mean, as much time as they need. I mean, usually people can give me answers pretty quickly. Um, just like a couple minutes kind of thing. But what I usually do from there is like, I crunch their numbers and I basically like do an analysis on like, timelines as far as like how long I think it might take based off their numbers to accomplish these
Mhm.
goals.
Mhm.
But then I take those two questions and those answers that support those two questions and I open up a much broader conversation around them. We do some digging, really peel back those layers, and then I give them feedback on everything. And that's
Okay.
where, like, I mean, I don't want to like, pat myself on the back or anything, but that's that's
Go
that's
for
where
it.
the magic happens.
Yeah.
Where you're able to like really hear them, and they're like, well, I've never had a financial person feel like they're in my brain right
Mhm.
now.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, And that's oftentimes what gets them motivated to move forward.
And what's so
Yep.
funny about that is you're not in their brain, you're just asking the right questions
Yeah,
to make them access that brain,
right.
that brain and that heart, right? And so, yeah, that I think that's really, really great. And I'm really happy to hear that you said that you dig a little deeper and you peel back some layers because that was the other thing I was gonna ask is the ones who answer immediately, like super fast, chances are we need to ask, and what else? What else are you
Yeah.
feeling?
And oftentimes people, when I ask that feeling question, you know, 8 out of 10 people will say 2 words. They'll say,
Frustrated?
it causes me stress
Uh-huh.
or I'm anxious about it. And
Uh-huh.
whenever I hear those 2 words, I always, just tell people, I'm like, can I challenge you a little bit on that? And they go, sure. And I'm like, I hear that every single day, but it means different things for different people. So can you explain what that anxiety actually feels like or what sort of thoughts run through your head? Can you
Uh-huh.
explain what that stress feels like or how that's actually affecting you? And
Uh-huh.
then they start using more descriptive words, and they give me a better idea to which then I can then take those and then jump in even more kind of thing.
Yep. Yep. Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, it feels like we're kind of like dipping our toes into a full-on discussion about how to coach differently. And
Mhm.
looking at the time, I'm wondering, do we table this for next week?
I think so. I think that this was a
All right.
good, kind of identifying that maybe the numbers aren't all you need. And I think that maybe
Mhm.
we could talk next week about, how to peel back that extra layer and
Okay.
make the magic happen. So
All right. Sounds like a good episode. Looking forward to it. So if you are a first time listener, come back next week for sure. You can do your first every week or week in a row. That'll be great.
awesome, guys. Well, thanks for listening. As always, we just appreciate the support and we'll catch you next week for another episode of the Financial Coaches Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Coaches Podcast, brought to you by New Money Habits and Sizemore Financial Coaching. Submit your questions to our hosts by emailing podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. Be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and join our growing group of like-minded coaches on Facebook. And until next time, happy coaching.